The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of KSMQ Public Service Media Incorporated or its assigns.
And welcome to On Cue. I'm your host, Eric Olson. On today's show, we explore the world of human services as Mower, Waseca, Steele, and Dodge counties take a look at merging their services. We also look at the proposed silica sand mining in Winona County. And of course, we'll have our Vision 2020 update. Stay tuned for On Cue.
From KSMQ Television in Austin, this is On Cue, connecting interesting issues and interesting people. On Cue.
Well, what began as an ambitious project to merge 12 county human service agencies is now down to 4 counties. While not a done deal yet, the county board is taking steps to move ahead. Craig Oscarson and Julie Stevermer are here to tell us more. Welcome to the show. Craig, start with you. Where are we at in this process of merging services?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting both of us for this. It's an important issue for the residents of this county as well as the region. And where we're at in the process now, as you alluded to earlier, we're down to a 4-county group. And where we're at in the process, and we're in what's called the mobilization phase. There's going to be different phases to move forward. And at the end of each phase, each county board will have the opportunity to continue or turn around and say it's not our model. And so as the mobilization phase we're in is more about revisiting items such as how would the governance structure look like in a 4-county model? How would the organizational chart look? How would the funding look? Kind of the big picture items in the first phase. And then the next phase will be more of the roll up your sleeves and get the nitty-gritty detail of how it's actually going to work. Mm-hmm. How does it work between the counties? How does it work with other departments such as the court system, the county attorney, and how do we deal with consolidating all the employees into one group?
And the county, all the counties provide so many touches to the residents, the valuable services, so it's very, very important that we do this, or that you do this in a way that doesn't impact any of those services. And Julie, we were talking about something like family services. A simple example, can you break it down on how we have to be so careful about making these changes?
Well, as you stated before, there are several programs, and it is mind-boggling if you would come into the office. Just to back up a bit, people know us I'm going to use an old term, as the welfare office. We don't just hand out money or food support. And what's mind-boggling is, as you talked about earlier, is how many people's lives we touch. Some of the concerns when we take a look at this project that we're looking at is a growing elderly population across the state of Minnesota.
Not just Mower County.
Not just Mower County. We're looking at poverty levels, and not just Mower County, although we know we have an extremely high poverty level compared to the other counties in our southeast region. Winona County be having the highest, followed by us. We look at the pockets of poverty. We look at the growing need for long-term care services because, as we talked about, having an elderly population, and we take a look at how the recession has really impacted folks in this community and this county, and the need for additional services or help, not only with financial help, but how it impacts adult protection and child protective services, because we have seen a growing increase in the number of children and adults who have been abused or neglected. So when we look at that and we look at the complexity of human services, and in smaller counties where one person may be doing 3 or 4 different programs, and then compound that by the fact that you've got legislation that changes each year on how you do services or provide services, and you've got to be able to pick that up. We have individuals who wear many hats. You know, for instance, in a county our size, we have social workers who do what we call child and family services as well as children's mental health. So they have to be versed in all of the case management duties for both entities.
Sure, they have to have training specialized for that. So
And I think some of the background of this and the premise of this, and to first start out in the background, is in all these counties, human services is seeing a very high growth pattern in cost. So it's what a lot of people say, it's unsustainable for the taxpayers to continue to fund this, and yet we still have to deliver the services. So can we grow to a 4-county model, and can we be more efficient through specialization of employees, through sharing of technology, providing some other ways for people to get services that are just as good if not better, without losing the services or decreasing the services we do. And as Julie said, we've got some high growth patterns in the state on elderly. Our region has some poverty issues.
so with all that growth, how can you do it? I mean, how do you?
And that goes back to why we've gotten to this point. It is unsustainable. So you have to take a look at how do you do and provide services differently. That is why the Bush Foundation, who has funded some of this, is very interested in what we are doing, because they do believe that counties should be looking at different ways of providing services. Adoption. You know, if you have one person who's in charge of overseeing adoption services because you're looking at getting kids in permanent placement versus being passed from foster home to foster home, that is more effective. It's more efficient because they know the ins and outs of the statutes that we have to follow in order to get kids placed in a home environment permanently. So again, small example, but that's what we're looking at, is how do we gain efficiencies using the money that we have without spending more.
So a person who does that service in one county may be doing it or able to help provide that service for in other counties, is that?
Exactly.
Yes.
And you're at the process where you're, do you look at, well, this job might be better suited for that kind of exercise as opposed to some other kind of service? I mean, law enforcement or sheriffs, they have to be on the ground. They have to be there, but some folks telecommute, provide this service. They don't have to be in person necessarily.
No, they don't. In fact, currently right now we have about 80 staff. We have 13 of those that do telecommute. One of the things when you look at a larger model or larger scale, what can you do with combined technology? You know, as far as being able to do evaluations, going into the field with a computer, being able to have that information there, take it back, download it into a state system, because we have a lot of systems that we are working with. It means that maybe we do more with meetings through Skyping or some type of technological device, but again, is on a larger scale, we can probably do those type of things more efficiently and effectively, which I tell people is really not so dissimilar than what we did when we merged Health and Human Services.
We all know where technology is going.
We do? I don't know where. Okay, you can help me.
I'm basically a dinosaur. My grandson is just a whiz, and we know that's the future. So how do we go into the future, and by being bigger, can we be more efficient? The other thing I think we don't want to mislead the public, this is not going to be a model that's going to reduce cost. It's probably going to reduce the amount of cost increase. So right now, as I mentioned earlier, we're talking, this is one of the biggest growth areas of our county budget. And rather than looking at, say, double-digit increases every year, maybe we can get more to a normal general increase that the public can live with. And so by being more efficient, we can save money that way, is one way to look at it.
And that's part of this mobilization phase, or mobilize phase, is looking at a 4-county model. Are there going to be the gained efficiencies? What will the cost avoidance look like? In a 12-county model, we knew they were there. But in a 4-county, you know, we're going to look at that. It's smaller. I think the biggest piece that we really want to promote, though, is we are looking at how we can be more efficient and make workflow more efficient. As Craig talked about, another example with just that technology piece is the state of Minnesota is going to that health insurance exchange, and with Affordable Health Care Act coming in, or there's a lot of controversy around that, I know that, but The state is preparing to do more with technology. And so when Craig talks about applying for services online, they're looking at going all electronic. And there are a lot of counties that have gone to electronic applications, or at least electronic processing, where people don't come in with all their forms, or if they do, it goes through a scanning device and we pull it up on computers. So it's coming, it's a matter of when it comes.
Oh my goodness, all these moving parts. Julie and Craig, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For joining us, and thank you for your service to Mower County.
You're
and
welcome.
You're welcome.
to all those residents. Very appreciated. And stay with us, we'll have more on this edition of On Cue coming up in just a moment. Stay with us.
You can watch On Cue anytime by visiting the KSMQ TV website, ksmq.org.
And welcome back to On Cue. Our discussion continues now. We're going to have a look at sand, something we all experience and know about, but how valuable it's become in some parts of our viewing area. And Jason Gilman's here from Winona County to share a little bit of insight with us about sand. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you.
And you know, when I grew up in western Wisconsin, and we spent our summers near La Crosse, Wisconsin, and we were chatting before we started recording here that you know, I remember sand trucks hauling sand and crushed rock and whatnot all the time, it seemed like, during the summer. But this, what we're talking about, the use of sand, is a little bit different than it was in my recollection.
It is. It's a new market, or one that has emerged to a larger extent, and I think the intensity is something that most people wonder about. You know, and as far as how prolific will it get, and then the hauling, of course, associated with the aggregate industry for construction and road work and things like that, had a certain characteristic or intensity to it. And the silica sand market that is hauling sand to areas where they're drilling for natural gas and oil seems to have started out in a more aggressive way. So that's one of the areas that I think differentiates the historic aggregate markets from the silica sand.
And so in your role with Winona County in planning and environmental, are you concerned with both aspects of that equation? That is, how do we adequately, correctly use the sand in our area, and how will it be used where it's going? Or are we just concerned about, or in your role, Winona County, what happens to the land if the sand is utilized?
Sure, yeah, I would say it doesn't concern us as much as far as the market differences. That is where it's actually being sold and used, as much as what impact does it have on the community, and are there adverse impacts that need to be mitigated? And those are things that we've worked on. The county had a 3-month moratorium that allowed us to study the industry and the uniqueness of it. And during that time, our goal was to take a real careful look at how they operate, and then create a streamlined permitting process so that they would have the ability to supply us with enough information that we could make an educated decision on it, and then issue permits.
And you have one or several sites that you're looking at or going through that process now?
Yes, we do. We actually have one 20-acre mine site in Saratoga Township, which is the southwest corner of Winona County.
And we have a map here, so we're going to show that to you at home, and Jason will educate me also on this. Sure. So that's Saratoga, did you say, Township?
Yes, this is the southwest corner of Winona County.
And so that area has a different kind of sand that's very valuable.
It does. It has this, what's referred to as the St. Peter Sandstone Formation, and it's this lighter colored ridge that is common to this part of the county, St. Charles Township and Saratoga Township. There are other desirable sands for the silica sand or hydraulic fracturing market in Winona County, but they tend to be deeper and less accessible for the most part. So most of the speculation is in this area here.
And has this come to the fore because the processing or the process has changed, or the fracking is now gone to a different level that we're able to do more of it?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of variables that have catalyzed the interest in this sand. Some of it is technology related, other is just demand, for the resources, oil and natural gas. And that market is fluctuating, of course, because where we started out about a year ago with a lot of speculation and interest, my understanding is that that interest for the sand that's used for natural gas drilling has waned somewhat in recent months. Industry people that we've talked to say it will come back, and there'll be more speculation in southeast Minnesota. So we'll see that kind of market fluctuation drive the interest in the resource.
And what are we talking about as far as how much sand is available in the Saratoga area and elsewhere for these processes?
Well, there's a tremendous amount of sand available. The St. Peter Ridgeline in Winona County, according to some of the industry people that we've talked to, may represent a 50 to 100 year supply just for what might be sold out of Winona County. That doesn't account for adjacent counties that have even more extensive ridgelines of the St. Peter sandstone, or other markets like the Wisconsin market, which currently, as I understand it, has 50 million tons annually that is already permitted and open. It's always difficult to really put your finger on just how prolific the industry will get because of all these market variables, but it's certainly one of the questions that the public asks a lot.
What are the top 1 or 2 or 3 issues that you're talking about in the permitting process that folks are disagreeing with or learning about? What are they?
Sure. Traffic intensity, it seems to be one of the larger ones, and a typical, there isn't really such a thing as a typical mine. They're all different sizes, but when I say typical, these are the types that we've seen that are speculated in this area of Winona County.
So this isn't about the sand per se, it's about the truck traffic? Is that what you mean, coming in and out? Or?
Well, that's one of the issues.
Okay.
There are others, but a typical mine of 20 acres or so might propose up to 80 to 150 loaded trucks a day. So that's 160 to 300 round trips. And that's an intensity 5.5 days a week, 10 months plus out of the year, that people aren't necessarily used to in some of the small communities that the trucks might drive through.
Sure.
So that's an issue, traffic safety, roadway adequacy, the impact on the road surface as far as, does our public investment in those roads still last as long with the increased intensity of truck traffic. Aside from traffic, there are also concerns about dust, and this is one of the more elusive issues that we've had to try to wrestle with, because while there are occupational health standards for silica dust, there isn't much information on ambient air conditions and what happens downwind of a mine site. And these are some of the questions that the citizens have raised that we have to try to grapple with. And the way that we've done that is through dust control, erosion control measures, and air quality monitoring around the mine site to try to understand whether or not there are concerns.
And it's not so much about the use of the sand per se, it's in the consequences surrounding the issue that are the primary features that you're looking at?
Well, there are some citizens that are concerned about what happens on the other end too, on the drilling end and the use of the sand. But I would say in large part, most of the citizen feedback we get is related to what's happening in Winona County and what are the impacts on our local communities.
And there's also going to be a pipeline or a slurry line of some type. Talk about that for a minute.
We have a processing site that is being proposed near the city of St. Charles. It's a significant investment. The investors are talking about something that may range from $60 to $70 million when all is said and done. And they're talking about a capacity of 1.5 to 4 million tons of sand processed per year, right on a rail line, a subsidiary rail line of the Canadian Pacific, and that would ship one train load per day out of Winona County, presumably down to Texas, but I suppose that market could change. But that most of the sand that would be delivered to that processing site would be done so in their proposal by a sand slurry pipeline, which they're talking about 6 miles long, running along Highway 37, sort of to the epicenter of where all this sand is located.
And this process will continue for some time, the siting or environmental review timeline, like a year or so, or what are you looking at?
Well, we have, currently we have a voluntary environmental assessment worksheet being done by one of the applicants. That's for 2 of the mine sites. They're also intent on starting one for the processing site and the pipeline, and that will be something that our county will serve as the reviewing local government unit authority for that.
Well, we're fortunate that our region has such valuable sand. I guess how it's disposed of is part of your concern and challenge and of your associates with the county.
Yeah, it is a highly sought after resource. We don't necessarily know all of the variables as to how the market fluctuates, but that is one of the positive sides of the industry is the economic impact, and of course that's promoted as well by some citizens that this creates jobs, tax base, investment, and that can positively benefit the county.
Wonderful. Well, Jason Gilman from Winona County, thank you so much for educating us, enlightening us in the short period of time we had about this issue.
You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Queue up your own comments for On Cue and send them to us at onq@ksmq.org.
And time now for our look at the Vision 2020 process and our update. Today we're going to talk about bikes and walking trails, and Steve Kime is here, retired from Hormel Company, and now you are giving of yourself to this wonderful project. You are with Bike Walk Trails within Vision 2020. We already have trails in town. What are you thinking about for the future?
Well, we have a work plan that we've developed for our committee, and that work plan includes enhancing our trails that we have and actually making them safer and expanding that to maybe bike lanes, safe city streets for bicycling, and also to educate our people and make them more aware of bicyclists, and make safe routes to shopping, schools, things like that.
And we have a couple of maps that I think are going to be very interesting for the folks at home. The first one is it looks like a city grid that's colored, and that's where you're at now with trails, right? This is a present day view.
Correct. It does show proposed and future trails also. Some are already funded. Actually, to build trails, it's kind of a long range. You have to plan ahead for that. And our Director of Public Works has been active in applying for grants and adding these segments to our trails throughout the period. And
that's going to have to, I assume the City Council or other agencies will have to engage whenever you're talking about adding infrastructure such as trails?
Correct. The City Council's involved, and like I said, the Director of Public Works has the plan. We have a master 5-year plan.
Why is it that we like bikes, that it's of value to a community?
I think if you just look around at some of the other communities that have, and that's what we do, we look at others that have had success with this, and typically I think of Lanesboro, how they have developed their trail and brought so many people into town. And you look at it from a different standpoint, health and wellness, I always think of that as well. And just getting people out and enjoying the city and seeing it from a different perspective than riding in your car.
You mentioned bringing folks into the community, and the second graphic that we have to look at really is an interesting view of the region and how as I look at it with the untrained eye, how a bike trail, we can really become sort of a hub to the area.
Exactly. It definitely shows Austin as a centralized hub based on other regional trails that come into the city.
Well, congratulations on your success. Retirement also, congratulations on that, and thank you for your service to the community.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Yes.
Wonderful project. Steve Kime joining us there and gave us a little overview of what's taking place in the Bike Walk Committee. Thank you for joining us very much. We're looking forward to exploring more issues in our region right here on Q. I'm your host, Eric Olson.
On Q is a production of KSMQ Television in Austin, nonprofit public television.